page, Colton. Cool. We're live on Facebook. Feels good to be back. How are we doing, guys? We've got Rob Fields and Colton Wade here with us. Welcome.
Evening, everyone. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm stoked to have you guys on the show. We talked about this. I put out some Facebook posts about this a couple weeks ago. And it's going to be fun to talk because Colton, we've known each other for a while through the kind of driving community and racing community, but haven't had a chance to talk a whole lot. But we're going to be teammates in a couple of weeks. And then I've been fascinated by Rob's efforts with Fields Auto Works and the products that they put out, the Cardinal, the new Toyota. And so I want to share with kind of the Apex Pro, following and customer base, what y'all are doing. But folks, if you're on the live stream already, I see we've already got some folks with us. Please hit the like, the wow face, the drill, share it onto a page that you care about. Share this on to HPDRE or instructors or whatever other Facebook groups that you think people need to hear the message that we're sharing. And feel free to ask your questions about the guys here and what they're doing. But we got some really interesting stuff going on. And Colton, the reason we connected and we're even having this conversation is because y'all are doing a really cool initiative to get more women in motorsports. Tell me about that, because I shared it on Apex Pro. Hopefully, if you follow us, you've seen what you guys are doing with the Future Frontrunners scholarship. But can you tell us a little bit about your inaugural weekend with that and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to. That's why I'm here with you tonight. Actually, I've been very fortunate to find a community that I spend so much time with outside of my professional career, and it's become such a big part of my life that I've really been personally charged with just trying to find a way to give back to it and like it's contributed to organically with a bunch of opportunities that kind of came together, particularly when that RSX went up for sale that we on for the scholarship program. But that same desire to give back, waiting on an opportunity to come knocking like that. I'm a father of a 7-year-old girl, living in a world where she has the same kind of opportunities available to her that I've always had is really important to me. And I want to carry myself in a way and take action in a way that provides that and sets that example. So when I look at the racing community and we see that kind of void of female representation, particularly in the wheel-to-wheel community, I saw that as a great opportunity for myself to get involved. And that's kind of how the Future Frontrunner scholarship came together. It's a in-house scholarship that the regular guy racing team owns and sponsors. And right now the plan is for it to be an annual thing. But my hope is that we can grow it and get the kind of support that we need to make it maybe more than an annual thing. I think that'd be really cool. But the main goal right now is to just find women that we think are going to be great ambassadors for the sport, that carry themselves well and that have that kind of fighting spirit that we're looking for. But just as importantly, we want to find candidates that have spent time dedicating their time and effort to the sport as well. So females that have spent a couple years in DE or have gone time attack and that have gotten involved with the community, I think are the kind of people that we're looking forward to kind of carry the brand.
That's awesome. So it's, and you mentioned like when we were preparing for the show, you guys are kind of putting your money where your mouth is, because you hear people talk a lot about trying to progress, like, people of color and women in our community and motorsports. And I just think it's cool that you saw this opportunity with this cool race car come up for sale. And this is what you wanted to do with it. And I think it's really cool because it's also a really interesting car that gets a lot of attention. So there's a lot of eyeballs that are going to be focused on this. It's exciting. So tell us about the RSX, because you bought Jeremy Boyson's RSX. It's a GLTC car. And for folks that are watching, That car was built for World Challenge. It was a factory built race car to race in the Pirelli World Challenge, like more than a decade ago.
Yeah,
So
it's
there's some
RSX
cool
number
history.
like 37 or something. Like it was a development chassis, and then
Yeah.
when they were done hacking on it at the factory, they sent it off to a race team to get hacked on some more. So.
To be honest, I didn't even know what we were buying. I've never been a huge Honda guy, so like I'm not really involved and educated in that community. But it was an easy button solution for me, because when I came up with this scholarship idea, I wanted to use Gridlife's DE program as like a candidate pool for the scholarship program. And obviously I wanted GLTC to be the outlet. You know, I look at the GLTC field, and that was the easiest. That was the easy approach for me, was to get our scholarship recipient involved in the GLTC field. And that car, you know, 2 years ago, it was winning podiums. So I mean, that we had a fairly priced GLTC ready car, with this other scholarship component that we were trying to piece everything together with. And it you know, I was just like, okay, well, we've got that car available at a fair price, and it's ready to race, and we're launching this scholarship program simultaneously. So I bought that car, and I didn't know what I was buying from like a pedigree standpoint, but for like a week straight, my messages and my phone was just blowing up with Honda fanatics, people I've never even talked to before. Like, oh, buy that RS. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about this car.
That's awesome. So you're telling me your E46 isn't K-swapped? That's what I'm hearing. So disappointing. Yeah, man. I thought everything was K-swapped these days. That's awesome.
It trends that direction for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool, man. We've got some folks you guys might know on here. Marlon Sumlin says, hey.
What's up, man?
Yeah. Mike Gallagher's watching from down in the on the Gulf Coast. Mike just built an E36 track car. It's pretty slick. Mark Whining, Cameron Parkhurst watching him from Minnesota. Cameron was asking about Fields Auto Works cars on the post that I made. So Cameron, fire those questions away, because I wanted to throw it to Rob, because Rob, we've interacted. Like, there's a cool picture that Colton posted of us hanging out in line getting food last year at a Gridlife event. I've got like a tequila shot and a beer in one hand, and you're on a dissertation about something really important. It's hilarious.
I was off and running on something. God knows what it was, but yeah, no, that was good. That was a great event too. Quick shout out to ASM for hosting that after party thing that we were all standing in line for when that picture was taken. That was cool.
The Corsa crew are on right now too.
Hey, Corsa crew, we know those guys.
We know
What's up, Joseph?
Well. Yeah, no, just a real quick, you know, for anybody who sees this who maybe isn't familiar with Fields Auto Works and what we're doing there. We're kind of breaking into the purpose-built track day sports car market, right? So looking at two models that we're going forward with right now, the Cardinal Coupe and the Scioto Coupe. And both of those are, you know, super lightweight, designed to be, you know, very maintainable, very much focused on track use. You know, there's certainly options for getting on the street with them. You know, we're kind of towing that line between you know, the self-assembled titling process, a turnkey roller such that, you know, what we're putting together is, you know, you don't have to do body work, you don't have to do wiring, you don't have to do suspension assembly, but still give you the opportunity to select a drivetrain and figure out some of those specific options. And then the track performance is the key, right? So we really spent a bunch of time getting the performance sorted out, really perfecting our recipe on that side of things. And about a year ago, a little over a year ago, we turned the corner from there and said, all right, we said it was going to do these kind of lap times. It's doing it. It's time to make the pretty body work and the nicer interiors and that kind of thing. And along with that process, we kind of pulled the sheet back on what we were doing, started marketing a little bit. The Cardinal specifically is the one that we went to market with first. That's kind of our all in price starting around 70, and you're going to go run $250,000 supercar type lap times. And that first Cardinal has been driven by a huge wide variety of people, but real notably, we did get a great opportunity to get some testing with Randy Popst, and he put some videos out there on his YouTube page and on our YouTube page that I think do a good job of going through that car. Right now, I'm super excited about the Scioto. We just this past week received the first of the bodywork molds for the Scioto production run. So we're gonna have some of those popping up soon. That's our it's a little more expensive, right? Realistically, you're 150 plus all in for one of those cars, but you're going to be out there turning serious LMP type lap times. Depending on your power plant choice and some of the controls and all that, it'll really depend on your choice as a customer how exactly the car performs. But I think most people would be really hard pressed to find something that came with the equipment you need to put it on the road if you wanted to, and will turn the type of lap times we're talking about at 150 all in. Plus, it's a beautiful car in my opinion.
Yeah, I just posted a link to the model detail page on your website. So folks, if you're watching, click that link and pull it up in another browser. Certainly stay on the show because we got some interesting stuff coming down the line. But check out the Scioto because it is stunning. And I heard Adam talk about it on Slip Angle Show, about how it gives them kind of that 962 kind of old school Le Mans prototype vibe. So if you've always my dad was always he was really into Le Mans, late 60s, early 70s, had the GT40 just burned into his brain. And so he bought a Superformance GT40, and it was awesome to be around that car and to just experience it. And the Scioto gives that vibe, but it's totally unique. It's it's you. It's if you want an original car, this can be you. It's very appealing.
Oh, absolutely. The way that I talk about, both of our models are very nostalgically styled, right? I mean, they're tube frame cars with, composite bonded tubs and stuff. And so we could have shrouded those in any body, right? We could have draped whatever shape over that. It's really almost this Rorschach test for car enthusiasts, right? I show them a picture of a Cardinal, and people who are really into the vintage Italian stuff are like, oh, it's styled like a 250 or an Alfa TZ, or you show it to the really hardcore English guys, and oh, Aston Martin DP 214 all day long, this whatever. You show it to American vintage car people, and often they'll go, oh yeah, it really looks like a Cobra, or a Daytona Coupe, or a this, or a the Scioto even more so, right? Because the Cardinal is very much the inspiration were those Zagato bodied cars of the 60s, like the Aston DP 214, 215, and the Alfa TZ2 is probably the closest resemblance. The Scioto, it's pick your favorite era of Le Mans mid-engine, sports racer, right? And pick your favorite one of those groups and then hold a picture next to it, and you'll start to pick out a bunch of similarities, right? But the reality is, it was intentionally designed to evoke a lot of that emotion and nostalgia and reference those icons of the sport. But at the same time, when you really dig into the details, we're very fortunate that our little community here in Columbus has some absolutely outrageous stuff in the shops. And we actually had the opportunity to in person compare, right? Here's a 962 and here's, what the Scioto looks like. And so we're standing there with, a bunch of pictures of the Scioto and looking at this 962. And the guy that owns the 962 started out kind of saying, oh yeah, that's that looks a lot like my Porsche or whatever. And then by the time we were looking, it was like, there's nothing like my Porsche. So it's really all about, it's all about the nostalgia and the feeling of it. And of course, at the end of the day, it's all about the performance, right? The car has to do what we say it's going to do. And, I think people are going to be really, pleasantly shocked by the performance of these cars.
Yeah, absolutely. I just shared my screen on the stream here so people can see what we're talking about.
Yep.
this is the Toyota and the Cardinal over here, which, if you've been paying attention to any of the major, automotive, like enthusiast automotive media outlets, you've probably heard and seen of the Cardinal, like Randy's talking about it. Grassroots Motorsports, read the article about it in there recently. And you might have seen it at a racetrack because you guys have had these. I've seen them at Barber in Mid-Ohio. I know you've been at some other events with them as well. And I can't wait to see the Toyota in person because you can just tell that that's going to be a stunning car. But I wanted to give people some context and show the screen here. So
absolutely.
Check out the website.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're at a point with the Cardinal now where I can quit showing people renderings and point to the real thing. The Toyota is very close on that. We're looking end of the summer, beginning of fall for some publicly available images and video of that Toyota car. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, the Cardinal is a product at this point. Like, it's a fleshed out, like, contact you guys and figure out what powertrain you want to put in it and buy one, right?
Yep.
Like, it's ready to go.
Yeah, we're getting ready to make so the first batch of 5 Cardinals, we're coming up on the first delivery from that batch. We had actually, frankly, we're a good bit behind on that just due to some supply chain stuff. We'd hoped to have that car and several other cars in customer hands earlier in the year, but we're finally closing the loop on all those things and getting the first one out, and the rest of that batch of 5 will fall very quickly from there. And then we start on the next batch of 5 Cardinals, and so we're going to have, the first real group of those cars out this summer. And then on the Toyota side of things, we're definitely further out as we still have some development work to do. We're a long way ahead on a lot of the other aspects of the car compared to how long it took us to develop the Cardinal. But, we're at a point where we have 4 Toyotas to build. 3 of them being customer cars. So we're looking for that number 5. So if you think that might be you, certainly get in touch, because there's definitely some incentives to being in that first batch. But
my wife will let me liquidate some stock.
Sorry.
So I'll see if my wife will let me liquidate some stock.
Right. Yeah. No, it's whoever it ends up being, we're looking at like springtime for that of this coming year. And I can tell you, there's not a whole ton I can say about Toyotas 2 and 3, but I can say that number 1, our test car is getting an LS7 and an Albans sequential transaxle and a Motec control system with Geartronics paddle shift. So we're starting out, with some really serious hardware on that one. And you combine that with a 1,900 pound, that car, everything but the driver, fueled up, ready to go on track, is going to be about 1,900 pounds, make 1,000 pounds of downforce at 100 miles an hour without any rear wing or anything. As a starting point, that's going to be a hell of a car. So
that's awesome. So same power to weight as Colton's E46 for GLTC.
Just about. It's real close. Yeah. I think there might be a digit that you take off the front of Colton's to get. Anyway,
Rob, you've got 16 Cardinals on order? Is that right?
At this moment, the firm number is 14, and we've got a couple more in process. And
damn, that's cool.
Oh yeah, so we've been joking about, like, I think the Vector car company made something like 17 cars or something. And
I met that guy at PRI before he died.
And like, to be honest, there's some aspects of what they did that were really cool. There are some aspects that in the end didn't work out, right? But we were joking, if we just deliver all the cars that we've sold, which, by the way, we're on track to do quite a bit more than that. But if we just deliver those, we're guaranteed a Wikipedia page. So after that,
that's a win.
That's a big old W right there, right? So
that's crazy. I met Jerry Weigert, or whatever his name was, that created the Vector, and he was really strange. He had like glitter, had eyeshadow and like glitter on his face. He was a character. I thought I was talking to someone out of a movie. I was like, are we on a Hollywood set? Like, this is awesome. Like, it's crazy.
I I know this might come as a surprise, but I've been accused of not being enough of a caricature to be in the position I'm in, trying to start.
Rob, help you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know. I think we should use that. We'll characterize you from that Gridlife picture because you're pretty animated in that shot.
I wish I remembered what we were talking about, because
yeah,
it was probably what a piece of junk the car I just worked on at Daytona was. But
it probably was.
I was just not use that name on this broadcast because we're not.
That's right. Not all cars are created equal. We'll leave it at that.
That's exactly right.
I was drinking some of Steve Pruden's tequila, which if you're at Gridlife Midwest Festival, Steve Pruden drives a Spec E46. Colton's got beer. Steve has tequila. Like it's, there's plenty of beverages to go around, but Steve has some really good tequila, and that was what I was drinking. And I was like passing it around to people like, have you had this really good tequila before? This is great. But Colton, Cameron Parkhurst was responding saying that his daughter's really involved in his effort. Cameron's up in Minnesota. I've actually driven Cameron's M2. Cameron, I apologize, at Brainerd International Raceway, crazy racetrack. I don't know if you guys have been there, but like you sail into turn one after a half-mile long straightaway or a mile long straightaway, and it's just flat, wide open, just like as long of a radius as open, and it's banked, and the surface changes in the middle. And then a fast car, you're going 180 miles an hour, and there's guys, they do track days there, right? And I'm up there like, this isn't normal. This is not normal. Like
it's normal for a GLTC car to be flat everywhere, right?
Yeah.
This is like in a GT3 RS, you are married to the floorboard and not even thinking about lifting. It's crazy. It's a wild racetrack. There's no safety at that place at all. But Cameron also said he got some information on the Cardinal. And he was checking it out and is going to watch the replay later. So that's awesome. But that's cool to see that, he's getting his daughter involved. And I've seen Colton, like we ran into each other at the airport one time and you were with your daughter after a weekend. So I think it's cool I just had a daughter almost 2 months ago. And so that kind of thought of like having your kids at the track with you and kind of not only like getting more women involved, but also kind of sharing it with the next generation, I think is really cool.
You look way too rested for having a daughter 2 months ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
She sleeps great, man. I need to pinch myself, but like I shouldn't say that publicly because but man, 9:30 to 6:15. It's like
they go through phases, man. Don't make your schedule off that.
Yeah,
we'll just start calling them in the night. Why should he be
right. Set an alarm. Yeah. Somebody wake Reigns up. Don't let him. Yeah.
My daughter loves being at the track. We've had her out to Mid Ohio when she's been with us in the past, and man, she's not only my biggest cheerleader, but she loves the atmosphere. She loves being around the cars, and she loves the excitement of it. It's really cool to watch.
That's awesome. So for anybody that's maybe going to be in the area, we're all going to be together at Midwest Festival. Wanted to talk a little bit about the weekends and how I'm going to drive the RSX. Colton's racing his E46. What can we expect? And like, what can people that like, so I went to Midwest Festival last year and drove Bill Griffin's car. And I was like, I'm going to be here next year, be damned. Like, I don't care what it takes because it's just the coolest environment. So like for folks that are watching that might not have experienced an event like Gridlife Midwest Festival, what's that about? And like, if you're following the Apex Pro channel and you see me walking around my phone and posting stuff to Facebook, what can you expect? Could be anything.
It could truly be anything. It could be an inflatable hot tub full of beer cans.
Yeah, possible.
I think there was some outfit, I don't know, some guy driving around in a Fields Auto Works truck last year. I think they called it the Shots truck, but these two yahoos just set up a bar on the back of their truck and driving around general admission. Handing out.
A hell of a lot more people than two by the time we got to general admission.
No kidding.
Yeah. Awesome.
We ended up with the entire Falcon drift team. Some of the FCP Euro guys were on the truck. Yeah, it was really funny. I told this story to somebody recently. I was trying to make it like a tie-in with Fields thing, right? They had seen the cars with Fields on them, going around that day and whatever. And so I mentioned to the we have these guys from Falcon and FCP join us on the truck, and I'm like, make sure you tell them like who's giving them. And one of the drivers turns around, one of the drifters, I don't want to get anybody in trouble because I don't know what they're allowed to do in their off time, but he turns around and looks at me, he goes, yeah, whose booze is this we're handing out anyway? So.
Well, for anybody that's on the show with us right now, we are currently brainstorming for shot truck-esque ideas for Midwest Fest. So if you have any fun ideas for the Fields crew to be doing in our downtime,
Drop your dumbest idea in the comments.
Dumbest idea in the comments. There you go.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. So yeah, if you're watching, let us know what. So to set the stage, last year Rob has a Fields Auto Works truck. It's like their tow rig with a flatbed.
It's just the tow truck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tow vehicle, and you have basically like the most liquor you can imagine. Irresponsible amount of liquor on the back of the truck, and they're just driving around pouring people.
I want to specify
drinks.
The driver of the truck was not partaking. I want to specify now.
Yeah. There's no, yeah. And even if they were, it's on private property in a closed, it's whatever. But yes, so we're looking for ideas, and the way that so you guys mentioned to me early in the day you were doing that, and then I was singing a karaoke song and saw the shot truck come by, and everybody's like, we got to go to the truck, right? So ideas like that. So I'm considering growing out just a mustache because I have kind of a creeper stash. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I feel like there needs to be something a little more distinctive that's like, that's the Apex Pro guy that's kind of creepy with a mustache.
Fu Manchu. Fu Man.
Just this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You find the wig somewhere and I'll bring the super glue and we'll make you whatever mustache you want.
There we go. I like that. So Gridlife Midwest Festival is like a celebration of modern automotive enthusiasm, basically, and it's more of a party than anything else after the event. And it's really like it's just a really cool atmosphere if you want to be around like-minded car enthusiasts and experience some really fast cars. Like Ferris's Corvette's really impressive, and GLTC racing is really impressive. And there's a big concert at the event. And we're going to be posting a lot of that content from Apex Pro, talking about, what's going on throughout the weekend, maybe do a live broadcast from in the car or whatever. We'll see. We don't want to get anybody in trouble by showing off anything too fancy inside of the race car, but.
Well, no, that's fine. And I want to real quick, just, as much fun as we have, and we have fun, I don't want to diminish how serious the racing and time attack and some of that stuff is, because, it's important to really enjoy the culture at these events, and Gridlife has, really a unique atmosphere that, we're so fortunate to get to partake in it. Who knows how long it'll last? Who knows how long it'll be this fun, right? But we're gonna enjoy the hell out of it while we can. But part of what fuels that is how serious the competition really is during the day, right? And I don't want people to confuse that with it being mean or it being expensive or any of those things. It's not. It's an incredibly welcoming culture, and it's a really the emphasis within the rules and from the stewards are on parity and keeping costs reasonable and all those things. But we're not a bunch of bumbling fools just loafing around the paddock waiting until the track closes. So it really is, it's a great opportunity if you think of yourself as being, someone who really enjoys, going to the track with buddies and having fun and doing all that stuff, but you also want to be serious about competing. I can't recommend it highly. And I, both on and off the track, you're going to get once in a lifetime experiences, no doubt.
To expand on what Rob said a little bit, and I can only speak to the GLTC side of things as opposed to time attack. But as far as Midwest Fest is concerned, we have a 55 car field with a fairly sizable waiting list. So we are inevitably going to have a 55 car field on track. And within the context of GLTC, for the people that are just kind of going to come and spectate and enjoy the concert, my message to you would be, come for the party and stay for the racing, because next year you're going to come for the racing and stay for the party. You're going to see 55 some of the best grassroots racers in the country, in my opinion. And it's a field that only continues to get more competitive, and the parity keeps getting closer. But really, I can't stress enough how special the show is that we put on track. And as far as Midwest Fest is concerned, you're going to come see the best grassroots racing in the country. And then when the track's cold, you're going to be there for one of the most fun parties and music festivals that a grassroots organization can put on. I just can't speak to it highly enough. And the Gridlife culture is what got me involved to begin with. And it's what's kept me there for as long as I've been there. And for the first timers, if you have high expectations for the event, you won't be disappointed. It's one of the coolest things you can come see, whether you're a music festival enthusiast, a car enthusiast, or both. It is a really special experience. And come find us, come find me and Andrew and Rob, because we're going to be there to compete very fiercely during the day and have a good time when the track goes cold. So I'm really excited about this festival. And just in the events leading up to Midwest Fest, even at Blackhawk this past weekend, I mean, the energy around the event coming up is really electrifying. Everyone's really excited about it, and I think it's going to be something really special.
Yeah, it's such a like captivating event, and especially if you're watching this and you're maybe more regional to where we are down here in the South for Apex Pro. Like I'm going out of my way to take a couple of extra days out of the office to travel all the way to Michigan to go to this event. And there's a lot of people that make kind of that pilgrimage because it's just a vibe and an ambiance that you're not going to get anywhere else. I don't know of an event in the Southeast or a group that's kind of regular in the Southeast that has this same kind of culture. And Gridlife does come down here time to time, a couple of events earlier this year, but it's 100% worth making the jump to come to an event like that, because the racetrack Gingerman, it's a perfect place for this venue. It's not a spectacular racetrack to drive. I mean, it's good, it's fun, but the whole event makes it like, it makes the racetrack 10 times better than it actually is. Like I really have favorable opinions about driving the track itself, and I think it has more to do with the event than anything else. And I think that speaks volumes to like the whole event. Like it just works. It doesn't have to be at a world-class facility. Well, perfect for what they need.
That's true. And the other thing I'll say is that for the types of cars that are racing in GLTC, and a lot of the, not necessarily all, but a lot of the time attack community, Gingerman may not be that bucket list, I gotta drive it once in my life kind of thing, but it races really well. It makes for exciting races. It's easy for them to cover with the live stream and stuff like that. So as a place to race, it's a great venue for that. And the other thing is, Gridlife isn't now, and as far as we can tell, has never really been about the super high lux, Formula One level facilities kind of thing. And so the opportunity and the accessibility that's afforded by being able to camp at the track and have the spectators camp there, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's part of the charm of it, is that people don't have to get expensive hotels. They don't have to, it's like the anti-Miami Grand Prix, right? Like the perfect opposite is Gridlife at Gingerman.
Yeah, I rented an RV. I'm splitting with Steve Pruden and Mitch Cobb, who's coming with me. So we rented an RV and they delivered. It's like $100 delivery fee. It's all in. It's going to be like $200 a person for 3 nights.
Perfect.
Dude, that's the way to do those events. Until we bought our RV, that's what we were doing, is we would rent, unless it made more sense to get a hotel room based on the event. It was RV Share or Outdoorsy.com.
Yeah.
Having them delivered to the track. Even when we went out to Alpine Fest last year out in Colorado.
Another awesome event.
Yeah, another good one. But yeah, if you're coming to Midwest Fest and planning on camping, the RV thing's the way to go, man. It's so easy, and being there at the track and experiencing the totality of like the nightlife and everything, it's the way to do it.
So I know people tune into these for like professional tips, like track tips and stuff like that. Pro tip for Midwest Fest. You just heard these two high rollers talk about RVs and hotel rooms and all that. Forget all that. There will be enough used pizza boxes, and some of the corner stations have roofs on them. So if you want to go to Midwest Fest this year and you want to do it right, you got to be rolling around in some old pepperoni. That's all I'm gonna say. It's just pro tip. That's all I got. That's all I got.
Oh man.
Wasn't there guys like shacked up in the pine trees back behind the concession shack last year?
Hey, do they still have that giant like canopy trash pile?
I think that's still there from the giant storm the year before.
Okay, if it's still there this year and there's enough canopy material, I absolutely will make a hammock out of some of that material, and I or one of my mechanics will sleep in the hammock one of the nights.
All right, challenge accepted.
We'll check if Ethan has hypothermia in the morning. We'll be fine.
Yeah, Michigan in June. I mean, you still don't know. The weather can be kind of.
We went there. So Midwest Fest last year was late. It was later in the year, but there was a Gingerman event in June with Gridlife, and we did a Cardinal rental. Quick plug: you can rent a Cardinal, decide to buy it. We credit the rental fee towards you. But there's a Cardinal rental at that event, and Colton was running and in GLTC, and it was hot.
It was hot.
It was gross. It was not great.
I think that's and the power went out, and everyone was like having the most miserable night because nobody could get AC, and the bathrooms didn't have any lights.
Yeah, bathrooms not having lights was a problem.
I think they closed, which I don't know what everybody did for facilities, but the bathrooms were closed for the whole night.
I don't know if I'm signing up for that. That's like, I'm gonna have to come up with a backup plan.
You got an RV.
They had a bunch of porta potties.
That's true.
Yeah, you'll be okay.
RV. I'll be good. That's cool. Let us know in the comments if you've been to Gingerman, driven the racetrack, because I'm kind of interested to see if we want to talk a little bit about the specifics of that racetrack. But Colton, I was interested to know or to ask you. We've been on track together a couple of times. I raced at NCM and Gingerman last year. I think we drove together at those events. But I'm curious to know, like, I heard your interview on track walking. You talked a little bit about your kind of progression as a driver and as a racer, but like, what are you good at? And like, what could I do with you on track that would really piss you off? Or like, I want to understand what I need to, like, I don't want to come in. The last thing you want is like the driver that comes into the team and just like flips the tables and is like, "This shit is no good. I need a fast car,"
Well, Rob could probably share some pretty angry in-car team communications from my end. So if you come over and start flipping tables, you'll probably fit right in. But I don't know. I think the only thing, amongst teammates, the only thing that might piss me off is if we somehow are involved in a 2-car incident and it's both our cars. Yeah. So avoid that.
If you do that, we won't have budget for tables to flip. So
yeah, right. But no, I between you and me as drivers, the little bit of track time that we've had to share together, we've always been competitors, and obviously we'll be competing that weekend as well, but more as teammates. I've always had great racing with you. You've always had better pace than I have. I'm hoping that between the RSX and the development we've done on my car, you and I might have some pretty similar races here at Midwest Fest. And to have some tight team racing would be a lot of fun. But I have really high expectations for both of us, to be honest. I am incredibly confident in you as a driver and as a racer. Even in a maybe not so optimized car last year, when you and I were at Gingerman together, you had a pretty productive weekend with some solid finishes. So I expect the same out of you at Gingerman for Midwest Fest and the RSX. And I think you and I have a chance to raise some eyebrows with the cars that we're bringing. And from where I'm sitting, I think that I'm starting to come into my own as a driver a little bit more too, and the cars come a long way as well. So I think between you as a driver, me as a driver, with the support of the fields guys, I think we might surprise some folks for Midwest Fest. I think that is a very real possibility.
And I love to hear that.
Surprise them on the
confidence.
track. We'll surprise them off.
Yeah, right.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So it's awesome to hear your confidence, and I've definitely seen, like, just watching GLTC this year, like, you were really competitive at AMP, and you kind of stormed back through the field at NCM. If I'm remembering the events right as well.
Yeah,
that's cool to see.
We had some struggles at NCM with the car, just some mechanical failures that, kind of reared their ugly heads at the wrong time. But we definitely have, I think, top 15 in us, no matter who's in the field or how big it is, with, the chance here and there to overperform there. And with a field, I'm assuming you and I can go out and qualify well for Midwest Fest. And as long as we can do that and the cars hold together well, I really think that we can have a productive weekend together. And frankly, having you on my side for the weekend, and the opportunity for us to do some downloads together after the race and talk about, not only the technical challenges that Gingerman comes with, and I don't want to say lack of confidence that I have there, but just my want to improve at that racetrack specifically. I think you can kind of pull me along, and hopefully Rob and I can give you a solid enough car for you to do your own thing, because I know you can go out there and compete with the pointy end of the field.
And it'd be a lot of fun. I was going to say, like, to your point on qualifying well, that's kind of, it hadn't necessarily been my struggle, but until I came back and started doing GLTC, I haven't done sprint racing since I ran in World Challenge. And I've been, coaching and driving other people's cars and doing a lot of endurance racing in that, because when you coach and I'm dependent on opportunities from other people that own cars to drive something, they're not like, hey, go run a GLTC race, right? So I kind of cobbled together my own effort, because I recognized in my own driving that I need the ability to, like, go fast now, go qualify. And that's definitely still the skill set that I've noticed, that, like, the really fast guys in GLTC have a lot of autocross and time attack experience, and a lot of that, like, and I've done a lot of autocross too, but it's been a long time. I don't do it actively, but, like, that go fast now mentality. And so that's what I've really focused on the past couple of years, because I have a lot of confidence in my racecraft and my race pace and ability to, I typically am really good at keeping people behind me effectively. And I'm typically really good at taking advantage of opportunities when they're presented in a racing environment. But, like, in the qualifying environment, I've really struggled. So I'm really interested to kind of pick your brain a little bit about your knowledge on the track, and, like, see things from your perspective, to hopefully find some extra, just, like, focus and energy to get the kind of the right. For me, it's all about, like, not trying as hard at qualifying, just, like, go drive and just, like, drive the wheels off the thing, use all the track, be precise, don't make any mistakes, and just kind of nail a lap. And that's just not been my emphasis for so long. It's been like, hey, do 2 hours as fast as you possibly can, right? Not 2 minutes. So I'm interested to kind of, like, do a track walk with you and hear your perspective on it, and then hopefully share some of, the knowledge that I've developed, particularly racecraft wise, because I think that's my strength. It'll be really fun to work together on it, though. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I've got a lot of experience in both of these types of cars, which is cool for me too. Like, my professional racing was all in front wheel drive, Volkswagens and Hondas, and then since then I've done a lot of E46, E36, chassis development currently for customers right now, and then also just driving a lot of those types of cars. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of relate chassis to chassis easily with that kind of inter-team communication. But it should be really fun. I'm afraid I'm going to go up there and be like, oh man, we got to do more races. I want to do more races.
Well, so one thing I want to just circle back to real quick that you kind of ended on there was, both the E46 and the RSX, in their own ways, make speed at very, very specific points on the track, right? They're not, they're both cars have, some quirks to the way that they're set up and the way they're built. And you can see very clearly, I mean, that's one of the things everybody loves about GLTC, right? Is that you've got such a mix of cars and such a wide variety of driving styles and talents and all that. one of the things that is really difficult on my end is, to know that not only do these cars make their speeds in different places, but they need different things in order to make that happen, right? And so running a 2-car effort is always challenging. It's challenging under the best of circumstances with identical equipment, right? If I had 2 Coltons and 2 E46s, it would still be, it's more than twice as difficult as running 1 car, right? There's just the compounding, number of things you have to do and take care of. But to have 2 very different platforms with very different needs and all that does stretch that even a bit further. And so I think one of the things I'm really looking forward to is knowing that both of the guys in the cars are going to be able to tell me what it is that they want and need out of the car, or what changes to make. It's my life gets infinitely easier when I have people who know what they want out of the car in the seat. So that's I'm really looking forward to that. And the other nice thing is both cars are for club level cars. They're reasonably well instrumented. They have a good amount of data collection, and we spent a bunch of time just this past weekend going over data with Lisa in her races, and going through a lot of her line, her inputs in the car, and definitely found some speed for her there, but also found a bunch out about how that car handles and what it likes. And I think we'll see those pay dividends at Midwest Fest.
So
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to circle back to touch on kind of the format of the weekend. And this isn't specific to Midwest Fest, but you talked about struggles in qualifying and kind of that mentality. And I still think that's one of my weak spots. So that's something you and I can work on together, is being hot right out of the gate. Because if there's one thing that's in the forefront of my mind all the time now, having been able to watch the fast guys in GLTC, is it doesn't take them all weekend to be fast. It doesn't even take them all of practice, if they even do it. They go out, they make sure they're at the top of the grid for when it's time to go qualifying, and they go out and they set their flyer and they're done. That is a mentality that I've really had to get on board with the last season or two, and something that I really, really need to work on. But that's one thing maybe you and I can push each other to do this upcoming weekend, is just be fast out of the gate, because with that size of a field and with the amount of talent that's going to be there, with the added kind of variable of, I think we've got 10 or 12 rookies in the field. We need to qualify well if we're going to have the weekend that we both want to have. And it's, if you're starting in the back half or even the back 2/3 of that field, you're going to have your work cut out for you. So one thing that we can start prepping to do now is, let's be fast and hot out of the gate and get some of that hard work out of the way. And like I said, I think that's going to be a key component to us turning some heads this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's, from my perspective, doing a lot of driver coaching and like dissecting mindsets, I know the mental program that's required to like execute at that level. And I won't say that it's definitely not my strong suit, but I know what to do. I just don't always do it that well, because I don't qualify that much. But now that WRL, so I do a lot of WRL racing, and now that WRL's changed their format to have qualifying on Friday as part of practice, I've had to go out and do like intentional qualifying sessions a little more often, doing that format. And this year at Barber, I qualified like a 10th off of pole and only had 1 lap to do it because the session got black flagged while it was still cool in the morning. Had 1 lap at the end of the session, got in a banger, misjudged some traffic in a slow corner, and cost pole for sure. But that gave me a lot of confidence, and confidence is such a big part of it. But I'm kind of curious, and we're getting close to an hour, but I have another question for Rob too, because I know you have a ton of experience, and we didn't even get into your background in aerospace engineering and like your family's background in motorsports. It's got a lot of depth to it, but you know, the swings and the developmental work that you guys do on Colton's car is pretty extensive right now. And I really appreciate that, because like we're doing a lot of development work on an E46 that we're working on. And it really takes like, it's just not as simple as like putting a car on the track and driving around in circles. Like there's so many problems that start to come up when you start to push the limits and you try to optimize the car. So what I was curious to ask is like, what is the kind of, what driver feedback do you respond well to as like a race engineer? Like, do you like to hear Colton tell you like, hey, it's pushing, or it's loose, or it's like, does it like, do you want that? Or do you want like really detailed feedback? Or do you want the driver to be like, I think I need a stiffer rear sway bar, you know, because we're all a little different with how we present that information, right?
Sure. So, so definitely, you know, all the data you can give, all the detail you can provide is what I like to take. But at the same time, you know, one of the things that's, and it just is part of the sport, right? One of the things that's always difficult is when someone gets out of the car and they say, you know, rather than the symptom, they say, you know, it needs stiffer front springs, right? Well, now you've presented me with two things, right? Now you've presented me with the challenge of understanding why it is that you want that, right? Rather than saying in this corner, every time it did this, it did that, it doesn't, I don't like it when it does this, right? That's, you know, but instead you just get out and say, well, it needs stiffer front springs, right? So now challenge one is parsing out what made you say that, right? And then challenge two is when we go through and look at the data and we talk a little bit more and whatever, and we discover that, no, what you really actually want is you want stiffer high-speed compression in your front shock. Now you've presented the challenge of me trying to tell you, after you said that you wanted stiffer front springs, well, what you really want is something else, right? And so that's always, you know, it's always much preferable to me to start from, you know, what the symptom was and go as deep and detailed on that as we can. And, you know, a lot of the time when we get into that kind of stuff, you know, the really experienced drivers who have driven a lot of different cars are more likely to give the symptom, because they've gone through the unfortunate experience of turning all kinds of different knobs and pulling all different levers and having what worked on one chassis not work on another, right? Whereas someone who, you know, they only have raced in one type of car or one car specifically or whatever, they're much more likely to get out and have the specific, well, I think the fix is whatever, right? And I don't want to discredit that experience, but at the same time, you know, especially when it's, you know, someone who's in a new car or starting fresh with something, or there's been a lot of changes, I always like to start with the symptom and work from there. The other thing that is a challenge, and it's a huge challenge at the club level. Most of the time at the club level, the changes we're making and the changes the driver are asking for, they are in the direction of making the car easier, more comfortable to drive, all those kind of things. And so for a long time in a driver's development, the things we're doing are in that direction, right? If the person is comfortable with the car and it's more predictable and it's more all of those things, then at that level, they're going to go faster, right? The confidence and the predictability is key. At some point, you start having to make choices about, you know, well, I know that I am taking away ultimate grip capability of the car, or I know that I'm taking away this little extra bit of something, right? That we believe in other hands, maybe the car would do better. But, you know, at the club level, it's so important to make sure that the comfort and predictability is there first. And sometimes prioritizing that over ultimate performance, especially because unless you put somebody else in that car, that ultimate performance might not ever be demonstrated. You don't know that it's there, right? So all of that said, you know, we start very much with you know what you want the car to do, what it's not doing, and then start making the changes. I can't speak enough about how important at the pointy end of even the club level. I can't speak enough about how important it is to have data to make your decisions with. I can't count the number of times that I've had a driver say, well, it's oversteering. And we look at the video and they spend the first half of the corner with the wheel pointed straight, or turned, and the nose of the car going straight, and then it catches and goes, right? And it's like, well, yeah, you did end up with the ass end in the wall, right, but not because it's a loose car, right? And so the data in the video is really key. It's one of those, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear kind of thing.
Yeah, solidly driver induced oversteer in that particular instance.
Well, I mean, that's even, there are definitely times when you're racing with less than ideal equipment, or for whatever reason the situation you're in is that, the car pushes and then snaps, right? And if a driver gets into that situation on a regular basis, and they've got steering input in, they're still plowing forward and pushing, at some point you slow down enough, you hit a change in pavement, you hit it, something happens, and all of a sudden the front bites again, right? Usually it's just that you've slid enough, that you've scrubbed enough speed that it starts to come around. And depending on the car and the weight transfer and all of these other variables, if that happens at a fast rate, it feels an awful lot like snap oversteer, especially to maybe a less experienced driver.
Rob Redkoff, I know you've been on in the comments before, Rob. Apologize if I can't say your last name. He's wondering if you like having more predictable toe in versus twitchy or neutral on the rear tire alignment. I assume we're talking about front wheel drive car in this application, but maybe Colton too.
So I would say for the front wheel drive stuff, we definitely are a lot more adventurous with rear toe. One of the things that's cool about GLTC and makes it an interesting challenge for me is the extremely short nature of the races. In reality, a lot of the systems on the car are really just kind of starting to work as the race is drawing to a close. And so things that, in an endurance car or even a longer sprint race format, we would never try because well, that'll burn the right rear off, or this will whatever, right? We're willing to be a little more adventurous with that in the sprint race format. So we do run some pretty aggressive toe out settings, front and rear, on the Acura so far. We'll see what it likes long term, but one thing I'll mention, one of the more recent additions to our team is Josh Foran, who is you mentioned Josh earlier. He drove for and managed the Honda Manufacturing Alabama team at a professional level for quite some time, and he's got a ton of experience driving and setting up front wheel drive cars, front wheel drive Hondas specifically. And he may be a little bit more prepared to play pitch and catch with the rear end in the car than some of our drivers. So we might not go quite as aggressive as some of his experiences, but we definitely look toe out on all four corners for the moment on the Acura. One thing that we have to sort out yet on that Acura, it's got kind of a multitude of adjustable components in the braking system, right? So it's got a single master cylinder for both front and rear. And it's currently using the stock pedal set. So the pedal length is not adjustable, but the master cylinder size is. And we already have started messing with the master cylinder sizing. From there, it feeds an MK60 ABS system, which currently is not active. But that will be another variable to toss in the very near future here. And then, of course, we've got Stop Tech brakes on the front, and another aftermarket caliper on the rear. And so we have a proportioning valve in line after the ABS. So lots of levers to pull, in addition to the normal adjustments of pad compound and rotor size and some of those things. And as a result, the rear of the car is pre-planted under braking. The movement of the suspension through its range under braking in the rear doesn't create any more adventurous of a tow out situation than our static alignment starts out at. So I think in an absolute last tenth of a percentage of braking performance and stability of the car, it maybe isn't perfectly ideal, but it's a pretty well proven format for trying to get a front wheel drive car like that to handle competitively.
Yeah, Robin, in my experience in talking to people about different drivetrain layouts, there's a lot of I think a lot of people assume that they're much more different than they really are, especially to drive. A lot of people talk about taking different lines and different driving styles entirely. And in my experience, when you have 4 tires, the principles are all the same. There's going to be some nuance into your inputs that are going to, get the car to do what you want it to do. And front wheel drive cars are very similar to Porsche 911s and how you drive them, because once you get to the apex and you go to throttle, or before the apex, whenever you commit to throttle, you have very little ability to, the front end's okay, in a front wheel drive car, you turn the wheel and it kind of goes where you want to go, but you can't continue to yaw the car after you go to power. Whereas in a rear wheel drive car, slip angle from going to power and committing to power early allows the car to actually continue turning. So a lot of times you can commit to power sooner because you're going to continue the arc of the corner past the apex, right? And in a front wheel drive car or a 911, because all the weight's behind the rear axle in a 911, you have very little effectiveness from the steering axle once you go to the throttle. And once I had experience in both of those types of cars, I was like, oh, this shit's the same. It kind of feels the same. And it's really not that different than rear wheel drive. But I think some of the bigger things that stand out to me are, a properly set up front wheel drive car is a little sketchy on cold tires because the rear end's got to be kind of free. Yep. And you have to be really confident in your car control to build heat in the tires. And something we did a lot in the World Challenge cars is a lot of left foot braking. So on throttle and then whip the wheel to the right and get on the brakes at the same time to tripod, not intentionally tripod, but a lot of times you end up tripoding the inside rear. And that puts, that kind of drags that left rear tire because it's really hard to put heat in those rear tires. Those are just some of the memories that I have of some of the differences where in a rear wheel drive car, it's very easy to put heat rear tires. So there's just some nuances to that.
Oh yeah. So at COTA this year, James Houghton spun his Acura right in front of Colton on the outlap in race 2, maybe?
Yeah.
Qualifying. I don't know, whatever it was. And I remember saying that to somebody and showing them the video and then being like, well, did the car brake? No, he spun. But it's front wheel drive.
And it happens so easy too.
Yeah.
I mean, from an outsider's perspective, looking at it, it looked like the car just decided to do a little twirl.
He expertly cleaned it up and was on his way too. The video, I know the video's out there. It's impressive, certainly.
While we're on the topic of the RSX, do you want to, if we've got the time, do you want to do a little recap of our weekend with the scholarship this past weekend?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think from the driver perspective, real quick, I'll say Lisa came in having a really good attitude. Really, she was up for whatever, thrilled to be there, and definitely the car became, from my perspective, the thing I had to manage from that point. first event with the car since Colton bought it. So lots of unknowns. We spent a good amount of time setting it up and getting to know some of the characteristics of the car before we left. But nothing can really truly substitute for running races with it, right? So we struggled a little bit on pace until we got a few things sorted out. Between looking at the data and working with Lisa and working with Matt, our tech for that car. We by the end of the day we were getting a lot better on pace. And then unfortunately the transmission fourth gear let go, and so Matt yanked that transmission. James Morgan thankfully pointed us to transmission somewhere there in Chicago at Speed Freaks, and we went. Lisa and I went down and picked that up while Matt yanked the broken transmission out. We had that one, the new one, new to us, one in about 11:40 that night, and called it a night. Next morning, while we were in there, we threw a couple other things in. We were a little worried about axles and a few other things. So we threw brand new axles in the car, as well as doing the transmission swap. Race 3, Lisa did awesome. She had made her way to third and was running really strong lap times. Unfortunately, the very last corner, one of the axles broke, and she had to coast across the finish line and watch third and fourth place slip away from her as she coasted down the straightaway there. And so that was heartbreaking. But that race started at 1:20. We had a race 4 was at 2:20, and at about 2:00 the car pulled onto the grid, new axle in, ready to go. And Lisa was fired up. She was ready for a little bit of redemption. I know she was thrilled to finish race 3 where she did, even with the mechanical issue. And she definitely made a statement and demonstrated capability, with her lap times and with her position throughout the race. But race 4, she was ready for it. And the basic result was she came fourth. Definitely some. She had tons of pace, but first ever wheel-to-wheel event. Definitely some learning took place around being around other drivers and what they how they sometimes some of the racecraft stuff, right? So car rolled off the trailer here, with a couple of things needed right away, just based on that on the weekend. So we've been throwing parts at it, and we'll continue to throw parts at it for a little bit here, and then get both cars set up and on the trailer and ready to go here in a couple days.
And just to piggyback, Lisa way overperformed as far as my expectations of her, as it pertains to the scholarship and its purpose. I cannot tell you how proud I am of her and her attitude. In a perfect world, we would have, not had any mechanical issues to overcome over the weekend, and the car would have been, flawless. But that just wasn't the case. And for somebody who, it came into expecting a nice, smooth, relatively low stress arrive and drive weekend, it was not exactly that. And she watched our resilience as a team, and she really captured that in her own attitude, and she never quit because we never quit. And I think that speaks to the kind of person that she is. But I'm really proud of Lisa and not only the result that she had, which was kind of not the most important thing of the weekend, but she did get a good result, and she was just ever so slightly off the race winning pace all weekend. But I'm also very proud of Rob and his team, and the efforts that they put in to keep her on track all weekend. As far as the scholarship's concerned, I don't think that we could have hoped for a better showing for our first time trying to do this. And once this season's over, I was hoping to make an announcement this week to start accepting applications for next year's recipient. But I'm going to put the brakes on that idea just because the car's got some development it needs to go through in the shop with Rob's team before it's the kind of, reliable track machine, if you will, reliable that we want it to be. But I think, we've got that weekend with you coming up, Andrew, that we really want to get ready for. I don't want to take away from that. And then beyond that, we want the car to make some more appearances throughout this season. So that being said, I want to get this development stuff out of the way first. I think once the GLTC schedule's over, we'll go ahead and make the announcement and start taking applications for next season. So if you're watching this or if you're following along on our social media pages, expecting that announcement, like I told you we were going to have before, that's going to be on a brief delay just until we get the bugs worked out on the car. But we have every intention of re-upping on the scholarship program for next year. So do stay tuned. We'll be posting updates about, when and where you can send your applications. But you can bank on it being around for next season and beyond. And, as Rob and I continue to develop the program and learn a little bit more about what we want it to be, it's going to continue to be an awesome experience every season. And I think it's going to get better as the years go by.
And if
That's awesome.
you're interested in applying and participating, what that means is you now have all of this season to get your shit together and get signed off on, a higher level of driving and the opportunity is going to be knocking. So
yeah,
Awesome.
I can now that we've set the baseline with such a great driver and great applicant as we found in Lisa. If you're a woman and you're interested in this scholarship program, I highly encourage you to start putting the work in as far as your HPDE experience, your commitment to your organization. Those are both things that we will seriously be considering as we take applicants, because one of the bigger components of this scholarship program is we really want to be sure that the people that we award this scholarship to are not only great ambassadors for women in motorsports, but for motorsports in general. So we're really looking for that commitment and the passion to the sport. So even if you're not racing now, if you're just getting started in HPDE or whatever, we're looking for the folks that have dove in feet first. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the application process. We're really looking for our next commit female racers.
That's awesome. So it sounds to me like, first weekend with a new car, new driver in the car, you're going to have some mechanical issues on the new to you car. Like that's almost a given. So it seems to me like the, overall pretty successful and also kind of just people that haven't been around y'all. Maybe I think one of the first events that I remember, I guess, was last year at NCM when you guys were dealing with issues with your car, and Rob essentially drove all over North Tennessee and South Kentucky to find components to rebuild your braking system in your car. And I was like, wow, these guys don't quit. Like, this is serious, and that's, I love that mindset because that's part of what drove me to racing to begin with, is just the commitment of I'm showing up for a race weekend. And I just have that feeling I only go to races when I have the feeling driving into the track that we're here to compete. We're here to I'm here to prove to myself that I can do something I didn't think I was capable of doing. Let's go to the next level. And I think that commitment's a big part of it. Being willing to drive places and get parts and all sorts of stuff. Like this trophy right here on the weekend that I finished third in a World Challenge race, we blew a motor because there's a corrupt tune on the ECU. And one of the guys from the HMA team, who's a friend of Josh's, Michael Gordon, drove from Laguna Seca to LA to pick up an engine to put in the car. So there's always those, the parts store runs and the Harbor Freight runs and all the different elements that go into a race weekend. And then you have those that go off without hitch, right? But that's the reality of wheel-to-wheel racing that's different from DE, is that commitment level.
Absolutely.
I'm struggling sitting here with you guys right now. I'm struggling to think of a where Rob and I can't imagine a circumstance where he and I would both agree to just throw in the towel. Where I don't think we're wired that way, and frankly, I don't think anybody that calls himself a racer is wired that way. I mean, obviously, everyone has their own constraints financially and physically, but I'd have to physically not be able to get behind the wheel for me to quit on a weekend. And I know Rob feels the same way about the kind of tenacity and intensity that they bring for their trackside support. And I think that's what makes this whole thing work, and I think that's what makes it so exciting too.
Yeah, the two things that came to mind when you're talking about that were, Andrew, we went from that NCM weekend of 4 days of bleeding brakes and throwing parts of the car and going all over to get parts and all that stuff, and a really just a tough weekend, to the NASA Trek race in July last year, where the car ran for 4 hours continuously, and the car kicked ass, the drivers kicked ass. The car didn't need a damn thing the whole time we ran it. Like that was for us, I think the low and high points from the car reliability standpoint of last year. We as with all race cars, they need constant attention, they need constant care, and the number of times between Fields Auto Works stuff, Fields Engineering, trackside support, or other, just other events that we've done, the number of times that we've kind of been told, can't believe you guys are fixing that. That's, I'd go home and put the car away for a month and then think about fixing it, or, oh, that'd be the end of my day or my season or my whatever, right? And, those are definitely memories that stick with me long term. As this is why we do it, right? So
yeah, doing the impossible. There's like that. It's amazing what you can do when you set your mind to it. Like I'm not mechanically competent, but there are lots of times, especially when I was pro racing, that I just did stuff that I didn't think I could do because I was committed on, there's no question on a race weekend. Like you're there to start the race. And if you like, the only time it's acceptable to not do that is if you've extinguished every option that you can possibly pursue. I remember having like this super drunk guy drive through the paddock at VIR, and we needed to machine some like hardware because we had just a horrible day. One of the studs came out of the right rear wheel, and I remember the car like bounced up in the air and crashed back down and blew the shock through the mount. And then they put on the rollback and broke the wing off on the rollback and bent the trunklet and like all this extra damage. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And we ended up having to have hardware that was like specialized, that we didn't have spares for. And so somebody machined us something out of some existing hardware, and like literally found a drunk guy driving through the paddock that's like, hey, I have a machine shop up the road. Like all these stories that like I can relate to, that I know y'all have been through as well, but that's really good stuff. Justin Barch, Steve Eisler, Cameron Parker. Has got a lot of folks still watching the broadcast, so I appreciate everybody hanging on. This has been a good conversation. But guys, y'all have any parting words? We've been on for a while.
Andrew, I know we said an hour, and we're going on almost an hour and a half. I'm here for your disposal. I mean, I've got all the time in the world if you need it.
Right on, man. Well, I got to go home and take the baby off my wife's hands, or I'll catch a bunch of flack. So she's probably watching like about the comment, like, "Hey, come get the baby." Yeah.
Hey, at least there's no question where you were, right? So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Public record.
Documented. Yeah.
That's right. I guess my one parting thought would be, for any viewers who aren't already, familiar with Fields Auto Works, definitely go take a look at the cars we're building. We're breaking into that market. We're going to be around for a long time, and the performance is proven now. So, and then for Midwest Fest here, definitely still looking for the golden ticket idea on what the shenanigans are going to be. So
yeah,
by all means, chime in, let us know. Come see us, most importantly, either at Midwest Fest or any of the other Gridlife events. And looking forward to a really fun couple days of racing here in a week or so.
Yeah, Andrew, just to piggyback off Rob to end it here, I'm really looking forward to having you with us for Midwest Fest, and I can't say I've had a teammate per se for a weekend or whatever, but I think you and I can really push each other to have some good results that weekend and have a lot of fun with it too. I'm really looking forward to racing with you and having the paddock space together.
Yeah, back at you, man. I can't wait. And folks that are watching, you'll see lots of updates from Apex Pro about Gridlife and the Midwest Festival event. You'll see lots of pictures of the RSX we've talked about and Colton Z46 with a big Field Auto Works logo on the side. Definitely pay attention to all that because there's going to be some fun shenanigans and some cool things happening at the racetrack. And hopefully we'll see some of you there. But awesome, guys. Well, we'll do one of these again. Maybe we'll recap what all goes on during the weekend. We'll let everybody know what shenanigans we come up with and our karaoke results because Apex Pro is sponsoring a karaoke category this year. So that'll be fun.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. See you later, Facebook.